the pilot actually got Chrysler to an ambulance, but then he got grounded because a fast-moving fog bank moved in and just shut down any kind of flying for like 2 hours. And that's why I was up there almost at dark, you know, waiting for the guy to pluck me off. But he finally found a tiny little hole right at dusk and got us off. It was, you know, about the longest 2 hours of my life. Another time, on my way to Crested Butte, when I still lived in California working for Bike Magazine, I decided to grab a bite in the Phoenix airport. Since Telluride and Montrose flights used to connect quite often in Phoenix, lots of you probably know why I nicknamed PHX Seething Pit of Rage International. I know two people there who sat idly by while America Worst boarded their flights, but America Worst never announced the flights were boarding, so these people sat there not knowing why everybody was kind of going through this little door. Unfortunately, I was one of those people. Anyway, at Seething Pit of Rage International, on the way to Crested Butte, I decided to go to a place called Nada Cantina. Nada, of course, is Spanish for nothing, as in there's nothing on this planet that should compel you to eat at Nada Cantina. I got the chicken taco. When I was in Crested Butte, when I finally got there, I was supposed to join a supported luxury mountain bike trip on Colorado singletrack. Literally, probably going to be the finest mountain bike trip I've ever taken in terms of vehicle support and gourmet food and fun riding. But after a couple hours there, I began shaking, like a jackhammer held by Katharine Hepburn, like a rattlesnake with Parkinson's disease. Suffice it to say, I never met the trip. As it was starting the next day, I was still at a friend's house in the Butte, making a series of panic sprints to the toilet. They call such emergencies the Hershey squirts, but that's kind of a misnomer when you think how thick and well-formed Hershey syrup is. My friend drove my ashen carcass to the Crested Butte Clinic. I lay moaning on a table and prepared for the best medical attention the Butte could offer. A big golden retriever came in and licked my hand. I love the Butte. For several days I remained in my friend's house as a kind of stain, and that description is not purely figurative. Unfortunately. To hydrate, I chugged gallons of lime ice Gatorade. The only effect it had on me was to make me despise and loathe the taste of lime ice Gatorade. When I finally left for Gunnison Hospital, the doctor ordered a stool sample and to hydrate me a bag of intravenous solution, then another bag and another. Finally, my never-opened bike box and I caught a westbound flight back home. My stool sample, meanwhile, flew east to a lab in Denver, and later the doctor called with the diagnosis, salmonella. Good times. When travel riding isn't dangerous, it's just plain weird. Once for Bike Magazine, two friends and I made a nighttime ascent of Mount Tamalpais in California's Marin County. We had hoped to savor the quiet of the hills, you know, San Francisco sparkling, the lights of San Francisco sparkling like diamonds, the normal payoffs, nice things. We hadn't expected a large, somewhat seedily dressed older man in his 60s for whom English was not a first language. He was a Slavic guy, I think, and seemed overwrought about a dead 76 Ford Maverick in the Mount Tam parking lot. He and his wife, who stayed mostly in the car, were stranded miles away from the nearest jumper cables with a dead battery or dead something. There was panic in this man's voice and foam webs in the corner of his mouth. Sensing his disappointment that we had neither cables nor information on the Ranger, this was in the 90s, none of us had cell phones, we walked him over to a payphone and urged him to call a tow truck. This guy, whose name we found was Tarski, instead called 911, and the dispatcher was not at all pleased. He told them, in no uncertain terms, to call a tow truck. Tarski did, and we could hear every word of the exchange. As he yelled, he said, "I am at the top of Mount Tamalpais." He bellowed into the phone. Tow truck guy calmly, "Okay, what's your name?" "Tarski." Spoken loud enough to wake the dead. Tarsi. And what kind of car? "No! Tarski!" The distinction would be crucial in case the remote, closed parking lot suddenly filled with other Slavs. Okay, Tarski, and what? Tarski! He is in Toronto. He is in Alaska. Sir, you're going to have to speak a little softer. SKI! SKI! S is in Seattle, K is in Kansas, I is in Iowa. Please calm down, sir. Look, I'm going to call the Ranger. The Ranger will have cables? no, I have the cables, I just need the ranger to open the gate. But if he has cables, the tug of war continued until the tow truck guy finally reassured Tarski that he would come, a ranger would come, and at least one would bring cables. We finally left, and as we descended, my buddy Joe could swear that Tarski had peed in his pants. Anyway, these experiences, travel writing experiences, would be worth it if only travel writers got compensated properly. But we don't, because everybody wants to do what we do. When peers hear what I do for a living, their most common response is, get a real job. They assume I have no nest egg, and they're right. I fully expect to spend my twilight years as a Walmart greeter. Travel magazines don't pay diddly, and they balk at reimbursing for necessary expenses. I wish Elizabeth was here because...
I am.
Oh, hi, Liz.
Larry said you might get paid in a year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I went to France and Switzerland last year for you guys and spent $3,400 with my own money. And the magazine took 4 months to send me $1,900. Another outside writer I know said always to invoice higher than true expenses to make up receipts. I haven't done that much, but I have resorted to other things. Like I once checked a bike but refused to admit it due to the $100 surcharge. When the airline asked what was in the big rectangular cardboard box with wheels diagrammed on it, I insisted art supply. That actually worked. I've also acquired magazine stationery so I can print up bogus letters of assignment. That way I can maybe finagle a first class or business class upgrade I could never afford on my own. I've learned the hard way that if you're coming back from a month-long ski trip into the Grand Junction or Montrose airports and you haven't convinced the magazine to pay $180 for your parking fees, think. Load up one of those wheeled luggage carts with your heaviest crap, roll it to where the cars get their timestamp tickets, then hope all that weight and metal triggers a ticket dispenser. Which incidentally it does in most cases. When you get to the cashier, and usually it's a senior citizen making minimum wage, he won't really care that you parked there for 30 days. He'll accept your lie that you've only been there for 5 minutes and he'll charge you nothing. And they even give you a friendly little wave, actually. Which kind of makes me feel guilty. Of course, travel is always expensive, especially to Europe, so you can't afford to get ripped off, which I really got ripped off once in Austria. It was 2004, the height of anti-Americanism in Europe due to the Iraq War and our president. It had been a great trip, working for several magazines and newspapers, actually. I skied Austria for a week, listening to accordion players. I went to Italy for a week, breathing cigarette smoke and telemarking. I went to France for a ski contest where the rest stations offered red wine. Good time. But then, when I finally turned in this Volkswagen Passat station wagon, a little late, it was really dirty. I'd been there during mud season and had this car for almost 3 weeks. Anyway, returning the car was okay, but when I got back here, an Austrian budget rental car person named Petra Morth insisted that shampooing the car was vital, and for this shampooing, Petra charged my visa 1,800 euros. I went berserk and complained, but Petra Morth said, "Nein, the charges are valid." And I really think Petra hated me for my U.S. passport, but I hated her too. And in fact, hating Petra Morth for a few weeks became my career. If you've seen the movie Beowulf, you might remember this movie that came out recently. You might remember Grendel, who makes this sound like and rolls around the mead hall, Godzilla-like, decapitating Scandinavians. Well, that's what I really wished would visit Petra Morth. I kind of fantasized about a Grendel going over to Budget Rental Car Austria and going, and a giant paw through her. But in the end, blessedly, it was Chase Bank, the issuer of my visa, who went all on Petra Morth and got her to drop all the charges.